Good morning. Today we'll be studying the second chapter of Hilchot Shofar, Sukka, VeLulav. In this chapter, we'll deal with those who are obligated in hearing the sound of the shofar and those who are exempt. We'll also deal with the proper kavanah the listener and the blower must have, meaning the blower must intend. We'll see, but the proper intention that one must have when hearing the shofar in terms of fulfilling his obligation. And the last topic we'll deal with in this chapter is blowing the shofar on Shabbat. הלכות שופר, פרק ב', הלכה א'. הכל חייבים לשמוע קול שופר, כהנים, לוויים וישראלים, וגרים ועבדים משוחררים. Everyone is obligated to hear the shofar. As we talked about in the previous chapter for Harambam, the mitzvah Mishne Tora is to hear the sound of the shofar, in contrast to other poskim who say that the mitzvah is to blow the shofar. Kohanim, Leviyim, Israelim, Gerim, and Avadim Meshuharim. Avadim Meshuharim is an indentured Canaanite servant who dipped in the mikveh for the purposes of servitude and then was freed. He is considered a Jew for all purposes. However, women and servants that haven't yet converted and minors are exempt. In terms of avadim have a unique status that are in a type of limbo state, that they have been dipped in the mikveh for servitude and accepted the mitzvot. However, they aren't fully at the status of Jewish males, and their level of obligation is similar to women in many things. Someone who is a half slave, half servant, and half free man. So, for example, if someone had a servant, if a servant was owned by two partners, and one of the partners freed him, but one of the partners did not, so it'd be Hetzio Eved, Hetzio Ben Horin. Tumtum ve'androginos hayabim. Tumtum is someone whose genitals are covered, and androginos is a hermaphrodite. These people are obligated, as is the Hetzio Eved, the Hetzio Ben Horin. Hachabet. And this is straight out of the Mishnah in Rosh Hashanah, Perek Gimal, Halacha Vav. Kol mi she'enu hayav badavar, eno motzi et hayav yedei chobato. This is an important principle that Harambam here is teaching us, that anyone who is obligated someone who is not obligated in something cannot enable someone else who is obligated to fulfill their obligation. Lefikach, therefore, and Harambam will give an example. Isha o kaktan shetak'u b'shofar, hashomea mehen lo yatsa. Therefore, if a woman or a minor blew the shofar, a man who heard from them, a man or a ger, an eved mishuhrar, who heard the sound of the shofar from them, did not fulfill their obligation. Androginos motzi et mino, ve'eno motzi et she'eno mino. A hermaphrodite may fulfill another hermaphrodite's obligation, but does not fulfill someone who is not like him's obligation. So he cannot fulfill a man's obligation, for example. Tumtum eno motzi lo et mino, ve'lo et she'eno mino. However, tumtum, we said a tumtum is someone whose genitals are covered, cannot fulfill another tumtum's obligation, and obviously cannot fulfill someone else's obligation. So a Jewish male's obligation, he wouldn't be able to fulfill a Jewish man's obligation. שהטומטום שנקרא, אפשר שימצא זכר ואפשר שימצא נקבה, because a tumtum, after the membrane covering that area is open, it is definitely he's definitely either a man or a woman. And because of that fact, and we're not, and because of that, and because of the fact that we're not sure what he is at the moment, he cannot exempt either. He cannot exempt anyone's obligation, both including other tumim and obviously other Jewish males. הלכה ג' וכן מי שחציו עבד וחציו בן חורין אינו מוציא אפילו לעצמו, שאין צד עבדות שבו מוציא צד חירות שבו. So to someone who is half a servant and half freed cannot even fulfill his own obligation, because the half of the servitude that is contained within him cannot fulfill the half of freedom that is contained within him. So we consider this person, again, is an in-between, and he cannot fulfill his own obligation. Rather, what should you do to fulfill his obligations? Rather, you should hear from a free Jewish male that should blow the shofar for him and then fulfill his obligation, because he is hayav, as you said in Halakha Aleph. Halakha Daled. Now we're going to talk about an interesting topic in terms of kavanah. The general rule is that mitzvot enan tzrichot kavanah. So, for example, eating matzah or netilat VeLulav does not require kavanah. But, for example, mitzvot that require hearing a sound, for example, shofar or mikra megillah, the kavanah is required for one to fulfill their obligation. And Rabbeinu Avraham ben Harambam explains this in a teshuvah, and the reasoning makes sense, because if you have someone else fulfilling your obligation and you're listening to the sound, so obviously you have to listen intently and intend to fulfill your obligation by listening to whichever individual is either reading the Megillah, for example, or blowing the shofar. But an action that you yourself are doing, for example, eating matzah or netilat VeLulav, does not necessarily require concentration or focus. Rather, it requires an action, and for those type of mitzvot, you wouldn't need kavanah. Another mitzvah that requires kavanah is tefillah and kiryat shema. הלכה ד' מתעסק בתקיעת שופר להתלמד, לא יצא ידי חובתו. Someone who is practicing blowing the shofar did not fulfill his obligation by hearing that sound. וכן השומע מן המתעסק לא יצא. So to someone who heard someone who was practicing did not fulfill his obligation. נתכוון שומע לצאת ידי חובתו, ולא נתכוון התוקע להוציא. או שנתכוון התוקע להוציא, ולא נתכוון השומע לצאת, לא יצא ידי חובתו, עד שיתכוון שומע ומשמיע. If the person listening intended to fulfill his obligation, but the shofar blower did not intend to exempt others from their obligation, or vice versa, if the shofar blower intended to fulfill others' obligation, but the listener did not intend to exempt himself by hearing this person who is blowing the shofar, the listener in both cases did not fulfill their obligation until both the listener and the shofar blower intend to exempt each others from their obligation. So the shofar blower has to have in mind the listener, and the listener has to have in mind that he is fulfilling his obligation with the shofar blower. מי שתקע ונתכוון להוציא כל השומע תקיעתו, ושמע השומע ונתכוון לתת ידי חובתו יצא. אף על פי שאין התוקע מתכוון לזה פלוני ששמע תקיעתו ואינו יודעו שאני מתכוון לכל מי שישמענו. Anyone who sounded the shofar and intended to fulfill any listener's obligation, and someone listened and intended to fulfill their obligation by hearing this sound of the shofar, this person fulfilled their obligation, because the blower did not, despite the fact that this shofar blower did not have this specific person in mind, rather his intent to fulfill anyone's obligation who is listening is enough to exempt this individual. And again, the shofar blower doesn't necessarily have to have a specific person in mind. Rather, it is enough for him to have in mind that he is being motzi anyone who is listening. לפיכך, therefore, מי שהיה מתהלך בדרך או יושב בתוך ביתו ושמע תקתקיות משליח ציבור, יצא אם מתכוון לצאת, שהרי שליח ציבור מתכוון להוציא את הרבים ידי חובתן. Therefore, someone who is walking on his way or sitting in his home and heard these sounds of the shofar from the shaliach tzibur, he fulfilled his obligation if the listener intended to fulfill their obligation, because the shaliach tzibur, his intent is to fulfill the masses, is to satisfy the masses' requirement to hear the sound of the shofar, and he doesn't intend for any specific person. Now we're going to shift gears and talk about tikiyat shofar on Shabbat. יום טוב של ראש השנה שיכול להיות בשבת, אין תוקעים בשופר בכל מקום. אף על פי שהתקיעה משום שבות, ומן הדין היה שתוקעים. יום טוב of Rosh Hashanah that fell out on Shabbat. Shofar is not blown in any place, despite the fact that the prohibition of blowing the shofar is only prohibited because of Shavut, as we talked about in the last chapter. Chachamim forbade blowing the shofar on Rosh Hashanah, on Shabbat. They did not. They forbade violating Rosh Hashanah for the purposes of shofar. So, for example, if the shofar was on top of a tree, or if the shofar was me'ever hanahar. So, despite the fact that it is only prohibited because of Shavut, Chachamim didn't allow the shofar to be blown. And from the strict legal standpoint, we should blow the shofar on Shabbat. And you would think that a positive instruction from the Torah should come and override a rabbinic institution of the Chachamim. So then why don't we, in actuality, not blow the shofar on when Rosh Hashanah falls out on Shabbat? Gezerah shema yitelenu beyado veyolicho lemishi yitkala veyavirenu arba amot reshut harabim o motzi'o mireshut dereshut veyavo yede isur sekila shehakol chayvin betekiah ve'en hakol chayavin ve'en hakol beki'in litkoa. So the reason why we don't blow the shofar on Shabbat is because it is a gezerah that Chachamim have this power to refrain one from doing a mitzvah aseh based on the principle of shev ve'al ta'aseh, and being passive and not actively going out of your way to do a mitzvah. And Chachamim did so here to save the Jewish people from not doing in Avera and Nisur Sekila. This is from the Gemara in Yevamot Daf Tzadi Amud Bet, that Chachamim again have the power to tell the Jewish people to be passive and not to do a mitzvah, in order for because of their concern that people would violate a Isur Sekila, and obviously Hotza'ah mireshut dereshut, as we talked about in Ochel Shabbat, is an Isur Sekila. And Chachamim were worried that someone would take the shofar and take it, that someone who knows how to blow the shofar, and take it outside, 4 amot outside the Reshut Harabim, or take it from one Reshut to another, thereby that person would be Hayav Sekila, because everyone is obligated in hearing the shofar, but not everyone is an expert in blowing the shofar. So someone who is not an expert would go to someone who is an expert and ask for that person to teach him how to blow, or to blow for him. Minors who have not yet reached the age of education purposes. אין מעכבין אותן מלתקוע בשבת שאין היום טוב של ראש השנה כדי שילמדו. We don't prevent them from blowing the shofar on Shabbat. Hold on. Right, so we don't prevent them to blow the shofar on Shabbat. Obviously, this is a Shabbat that is not a Yom Tov of Rosh Hashanah, and we don't prevent them in order for them to learn. ומותר לגדול להתעסק עמהן כדי ללמדן ביום טוב, בין קטן שהגיע לחינוך, בין קטן שלא הגיע לחינוך. And it is permissible for an adult to be with them and to help them practice and teach them how to blow the shofar in order to teach them even when Yom Tov falls out on Shabbat. Even a minor who has not yet reached the age of chinuch. שהתקיעה אין אסורה אלא משום שבות. Because the sounding of the shofar is only prohibited because of shevut, and Chachamim carved out this exception for tinokot that wanted to learn and an adult who wanted to teach them. כשגזרו שלא לתקוע בשבת, לא גזרו אלא במקום שאין בו בית דין. When Chachamim prohibited for us not to blow the shofar on Shabbat, they only prohibited it in a place that there is not a present beit din there. אבל בזמן שהיה המקדש קיים והיה בית דין הגדול שבירושלים, היו הכל תוקעים בירושלים בשבת, כל זמן שבית דין יושבים. This is from a Mishnah in Masechet Rosh Hashanah, פרק ד', halacha aleph, that back in the day that the Beit HaMikdash was around and the Beit Din in Yerushalayim was still in session, everyone in Yerushalayim would blow the shofar on Shabbat, again, so long as the Beit Din was in session. ולא אנשי ירושלים בלבד, אלא כל עיר שהייתה בתוך תחום ירושלים, והייתה רואה ירושלים, לא שתהיה בתוך הנחל והייתה שומעת כל תקיעת ירושלים, לא שתהיה בראש ההר והייתה יכולה לבוא לירושלים, לא שיהיה הנהר מפסיק ביניהן, אנשי אותה העיר היו תוקעים בשבת ירושלים, אבל בשאר ערי ישראל לא היו תוקעים. So, not just the people inside of Yerushalayim would blow the shofar on Shabbat, and this is actually one of the ways that the Chachamim say that Yerushalayim was greater in status than Yavneh was. Yavneh was the place that this Beit Din moved after things started to get bad in Yerushalayim because of the Romans. And so not just the people inside of Yerushalayim, rather Harambam here gives 4 conditions that people would blow the shofar on Shabbat. One condition is that it would be inside of the tehum of Yerushalayim and would see Yerushalayim. So the people in those cities would blow the shofar on Shabbat. Also, people who were living, who were not living inside of a valley and would hear the shofar of the sounding of the shofar in Yerushalayim, those people who are not living in a valley would blow the shofar on Shabbat. Third, people who are not living at the side of a mountain, and people who are not living on the side of a mountain. And fourth, and people that were able to reach Yerushalayim and not have a type of natural barrier in between them. So all of these types of people would blow the shofar on Shabbat, just as the people in Yerushalayim would. However, other cities in Israel would not blow the shofar on Shabbat. Nowadays that the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, may be built במהרה בימינו, כל מקום שיש בו בית דין קבוע, והוא שיהיה סמוך בארץ, תוקעים בו בשבת. Any beit din that has a permanent court, and that those people sitting on the court were ordained in Yerushalayim, may blow the shofar on Shabbat. ואין תוקעין בשבת אלא בבית דין שקידשו את החודש. Another qualification of blowing the shofar on Shabbat, that this beit din, number one, has to be ordained in Yerushalayim, and number two, has to be a beit din that sanctifies the new moon. אבל שאר בתי דינין אין תוקעין בהן אף על פי שהן סמוכין. However, other courts that do not sanctify the month, despite the fact that they may be simukhin, do not we do not blow the shofar in a city that has a permanent beit din. And we only blow the shofar in the beit din's presence, while they are in session. Even a court that was about to end the session and have not gotten up yet to end the session, the shofar may be blown in their presence. However, outside of beit din, the shofar may not be blown. Why do we require the shofar to be blown in the presence of beit din? Because beit din are meticulous. Because a person, the shofar blower would not transport the shofar in the court's presence to in the Reshut Rabim, because the Beit Din would warn the people and tell them, obviously, that carrying the shofar outside of the Beit Din and outside of the Tihum is asur. Chayod, final halacha, בזמן הזה שאנו עושים שני ימים בגלות, כדרך שתוקעים בראשון, תוקעים בשני. As we talked about in Hilchot Yom Tov, that nowadays that we do 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, originally because we weren't sure what the actual Yom Tov was, but nowadays, and ever since they had the calendar, which was I believe in the days of VeLulav Hazaken, which we do Shnei Yom Tov because of the minhag. We blow the shofar on both days, and we blow the shofar on both days, and there's no distinction between the first day and the second day. And if the first day of Rosh Hashanah fell out on Shabbat, and there isn't a qualified beit din for one to be able to blow the shofar on Shabbat, we only blow the shofar on the second day of Rosh Hashanah. And today, because we do everything based on the calendar, only the first day of Rosh Hashanah can fall out on Shabbat. The second day of Rosh Hashanah cannot fall out on Shabbat. And an easy way to remember it is the mnemonic Lo Adu Rosh. Not on Aleph, Daled, or Vav can the first day of Rosh Hashanah fall out of. Not the first day, not the fourth day, and not the sixth day. Tomorrow we'll study the third chapter of the Shofar, Sukka.